Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of ZB's Horsepower Talk. As always, I'm ZB, Zack Brown, and as always, joining with me, former 410 Sprint Car crew chief and mechanic, my dad, Jeff Brown. Dad, we got a lot to go over, getting into the start of both dirt racing and NASCAR racing season, starting within the next week. Going to go over some news that happened in the NASCAR world. Got our top 5 list for the best all-time NASCAR drivers that we've got. And once again, a trivia question to end the show for you today.
All right. We got, end of football season. That means one thing. Daytona is right around the corner.
And actually, with the week off from between the championship games and the Super Bowl, NASCAR has its Clash, which usually would be the start of Daytona Speed Weeks. But of course, we could probably start getting on my high horse real quick about the Clash and just how frustrating it is to have this race. And it's in an LA Coliseum. They don't do it the right way. They're doing it on a Sunday night in a city that nobody cares about racing. And last year, it was just, I believe from seeing it, it was less than optimal of fans, and it was just kind of weird. I don't know why they did it again.
It's too small of a track to have those bigger cars and that many of them on it. It's just
the idea.
NASCAR wants to try to control costs, and yet here we go.
Building a whole track every year.
Let's freaking drive the rigs back and forth across the country. That's just stupid.
Yeah, and. I mean, I don't really have any more to go on it. I ranted about it last year. I said it was kind of a failure that they had. They're doing it once again. I don't know. Just frustrating that they want to keep it there. They should have kept it.
They said at first, like for the heat races and everything, Saturday, they weren't going to allow any fans in there.
I think that was just a rumor, because I did see the schedule of events on track, and they said gates open at like 12 or something.
I guess they changed it because I think it's actually free for Saturday night. I don't know what the whole deal was. But
yeah, so and
that really would have been stupid if they would not have had fans in there.
Yeah, they've got they got the qualifying races and I guess some heat races on Saturday night, and then they go into the last chance qualifier races on Sunday, and then get into the main event. And one thing that NASCAR announced this past week is that NASCAR has developed an all-electric vehicle, and they're going to do a demonstration run at the Clash at the Coliseum, and NASCAR driver David Reagan is going to be driving it. So it's got lights, it's got everything. It doesn't sound, you won't hear it, which that's weird. It just goes the whole time around, I guess. I'm sure it's kind of neat, the idea, but I hope it's not where they're planning a direction of getting rid of horsepower engines and get a freaking Tesla.
big draw for racing is the sound. I mean, it's, you want to hear everything just hum by. That's dumb as shit.
They are also looking at doing a hydrogen combustible engine, which that would be interesting because at high speeds that NASCAR has, and hydrogen fuel cell engines have been notorious for exploding upon impacts. So I don't know how they would develop that and make it safe for the drivers, but hopefully they can do a whole separate series if they want to have an electric series, but don't make that go into the whole NASCAR Cup series.
If you're going to run electric, just do it virtual and play iRacing.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's more horsepower in the iRacing than there is electrical. Another big news this past week, the Hall of Fame inductees of 2024 were inducted to the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte. The three were Donnie Allison, Jimmy Johnson, and Chad Knaus. Obviously, well-deserved in all of them, especially Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus, two of the best combination driver crew chief in the history of NASCAR. And Janet Guthrie, the first female in NASCAR, she was awarded the Landmark Award for outstanding contributions to NASCAR. Obviously, she was a pioneer in having females get into racing and hasn't gotten too popular in NASCAR. Lately, some females are getting into it, but you see it more in the open wheel. You see it more in drag racing as well. But yeah, obviously the female impact of the sport has risen, obviously, since she made that big impact back in the 60s. But congrats to Donnie Allison, Jimmy Johnson, and Chad Canals, the 14th class of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, which is crazy. It took that long to get the Hall of Fame anyways.
Yeah, it's well-deserved. And Janet Guthrie, I think she was the first woman to run the Indy 500 as well.
Yep.
So she's raced plenty of cars. And, Allison, one of the original Alabama gang, definitely well-deserved there. And, people like them or not, Chad Canals and Jimmy Johnson were the absolute best there was at their time, You're going to say people are like, oh, they've always cheated. Well, if you're not getting caught cheated, you're not trying hard enough every now and then. There's probably not one legal car that runs any given week, so it's just whether you get caught.
Yeah, so obviously that's a place I'd like to get to and to see all the memorabilia and all the drivers. I guess the longer you wait, the more stuff there's going to be. So if I just keep waiting it out, there'll be a lot neater stuff. Obviously, drivers like Jeff Gordon, who will be eligible, I think, within the next year or two, he'll be inducted, and there'll be tons of drivers that recently have retired.
Pretty sure Gordon's in there.
Or maybe he is in there. Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure he's in. I think he's one of the first.
Okay. Well, whatever.
Or at least I think he was first ballot when he was eligible.
Okay. Well, I mean, I figured I wasn't sure if he was already in it or not. Obviously, juniors. Yeah, I guess so because juniors in it. Another big change to 2024. NASCAR's changing how qualifying is going for all the series. Besides the Daytona 500, which has the duels, obviously, the big change is that the top 10 set like it normally is, Group A and Group B. You get into the final round, you go for that. But Group A and Group B has it split. Group A will determine the inside row. Group B will be outside row, or vice versa. So Group B will be inside row. Group A is outside row. So depending on how you go up against your group, that will determine that whole inside row. Instead of going total time, how they determined 11 through 40 or how many cars there are. So That's a big change they are doing. That'll be kind of interesting how they do that. And also, they are going back to stage cautions permanently for all races, including the road course races, which they suspended for a short while, then they brought them back.
Yeah, as far as the qualified thing, it's going to be very similar to the way some of the sprint car races would do it when they'd have the two qualifying sessions. One of them will line up on the inside, the next one will line up on the outside. So it's it probably makes it a lot easier that way. If you're just miss it in your group, you could be a second slower than the other group, but you'll still get to start beside in row 6 or whatever it would be.
Yeah, I'm definitely all for the qualifying format that they have though right now. That makes that qualifying more exciting, and it goes by pretty quick too, on especially the shorter tracks. So I like that qualifying. I do wish they would go back to how they did the practice sessions. You get a little bit more practice time, and you open it up with more TV time and get to see the drivers go around and stuff. That's one difference, but I like the qualifying format. NASCAR's made questionable changes before, but I think this is one positive they've made, and it's been adding some excitement to TV as well.
Yeah, I think so. It's it's never going to go back to like it used to be, where especially it used to be fun. Like we'd get to about this time of year, and every day there'd be something going on at Daytona. You'd be seeing some practice sessions. I can remember going down after working in the shop. Me and Dad, we go turn on the TV and see who's doing what down in Daytona. So that I kind of miss. But that's one of NASCAR's cost-cutting measures, which yes. I mean I can understand at some point, but I don't see any point of trying to cut costs that much on certain things, especially for Daytona when it was supposed. It used to be like almost a solid 2 weeks of racing down there, whether it be even just practice and qualifying and the shootout and everything else,
Well, a couple more things to touch on with news, and we'll touch on what going on in your background right there. In the dirt racing world, the High Limit Series has released their midweek high stakes races and how incredible these payouts are going to be I don't think anybody expected this. 9 shows in the High Limit Series will have at least $50,000 to win. Absolutely incredible. The Bob Weicker Memorial, which I looked at specifically because a home track, Port Royal, a very historic memorial race, $75,000 to win. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I saw Lance DeWeese actually commented on that, and he had a really good point. What's the payout down through? He's
true.
like, that's what the local racers are going to be. Because let's face it, you're going to have to be one of the top tier teams that's going to hit that thing. And if it's not going to be for the local racers, you're not going to have a full field. Now in Pennsylvania, it can be a little different. Those local teams are as good as anybody on their home track. You got DeWeese, you got Wagner, you got Dietrich, you got the Ramers. Any one of them could pull off the 75,000. But some of those other tracks where you're getting they're probably not the budget. Even the Pennsylvania cars got. So is it $75,000 to win? 8,000 for second or something stupid like that. I get it. That's what sells the tickets. That's what's going to be advertised. Hey, $75,000 to win. Everybody's like, wow, that's going to be cool.
Well, the good news for that race, especially, the owner of High Limit Racing will not be participating in it because he'll be a little bit busy at the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 that weekend. So that's one driver that cannot win the $75,000. So you can scratch him out of the field, and you have a little bit better of a chance to come away with the win. But you still got to go through Brad Sweet, so that's going to be a favorite up there too. Looking forward to previewing that weekend. And obviously all the other racing. That's going to be an insane episode. We might have to set aside a couple hours for that one. That will be a lot to talk about.
Let's add one more big race for that whole weekend. Why not?
Yes. And you actually texted me right before that we started recording this. About Lincoln Speedway. So why don't you just let everybody know what's going on with Lincoln Speedway up in Pennsylvania and what they are trying out this year?
Starting with the Icebreaker.
30.
The 30. At the end of February, they are going to go with a virtual flagman system. So there's not actually going to be a flagman in the flag stand. They're going to go with lights, I think digital scoreboards. They're still going to have the flag, like the corner flagman, and then on the front stretch, you're still going to have those for cautions and red flags and things like that. But they want to, as a safety issue, they want to get the 2 flagmen in the stands away from the track, which I could totally see. And when I first heard it, I thought, that's stupid. Then I got to thinking about it. You know what? Why do you really need a flagman if you really think about it?
Yeah, these days, you really don't.
You're gonna have those guys controlling the race from up in the booth, other than just waving the flag. And I get that. I mean, that's part of motorsports, and that's the whole thing. I can remember being a kid. I wanted to be the flagman. I had the flags, the whole deal.
All the kids do, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fun. But I mean, I get it, and I don't see it being any kind of a major adjustment because the drivers they're going to be looking at the lights more than the flag anyway.
And now the drivers, they have the digital receivers. They can hear like, hey, we got 1 to go now and everything, and they can't respond to them, but they can at least hear what's going on with the track. And you hear it on some of the Flow Racing races. I think it's usually Port Royal. You can kind of hear an echo in the background. They say, drivers, we got 1 to go, lights are out, or whatever it is. And then they know, hey, the next time around we're going, the leader's controlling the race. So yeah, I guess it does make sense. And see how it goes.
I'm surprised it's taken this long.
I'm just surprised it really started with Lincoln Speedway over more prolific outlaw tracks or something.
Like a high limit thing. Be like, hey, let's do this without flag.
Yeah, and now you might see High Limit start doing that as well. Theirs a little bit unique though because of the double file restarts and stuff, so that you might still have to have a flagman just for those purposes. But I think that really wraps up the big news. Unless you have something that you've seen just before we hit record, I think those are the big highlights of this last week with the news. Obviously, the Clash starts next week, but this week behind you on your screens, the Rolex 24. We're not experts in that by any means, but
it's still an iconic motorsports event throughout
Yes.
the whole world. So that's
Yes, and I don't think the Hendrick Camaro will be out there like it was at Le Mans. That'd be pretty cool if they brought it to that. But I think they have that set up in the museum now. I think that was a one-time thing. Been pretty cool to see it at Daytona, but yeah, it's quite literally 24 hours, and the drivers split it up, usually between 2 to 3 hours, and they just take breaks every now and then, possibly 4 hours.
Yeah, they generally have three drivers. And I guess they can swap out whenever they want. I do remember when Dale Senior, Dale Junior, and I don't remember the third one they were running. They were running a Corvette, and Senior said, "Hey, we'll let Junior run the night shift because he's up all night anyway."
Yeah, and there's still some clips of I think it was in 2000 if I'm not mistaken, and they had in-car camera of Dale driving the road course in that Corvette, so that was actually pretty cool to see. I have one thing forgot to mention it last week. The SRX series will be suspending their season this year. I like the series, and we kind of talked about it through text and stuff. It looks like as late as it was on Thursdays, kind of killed the series. Didn't have as good of ratings. And we were saying if it started maybe an hour to 2 hours before, if the actual feature started at 8 o'clock, I think that would have been fine. But people on the East Coast are going to be going to bed, and the West Coast, they're still not really up in with that. And the advertising wasn't really out there. Even if it was on ESPN, they kind of lost opportunities to advertise on it.
See, it used to be on, I think it was on Fox, or it was on regular network.
CBS.
That helped. And I think some of the things not running on some of the bigger speedways, like with NASCAR or with IndyCar or something, kind of hurt it a little bit. Some of the, I get having those stars coming to those small tracks, but I think a little bit of that was kind of after a one and done kind of thing. Like, okay, that's the thing. But and also during the same week, it announced Ray Abraham, who was formerly with SRX, is bringing back the IROC series. There hasn't been a whole lot of information on that, where they're going to be run, what cars they're going to be running. But I'm going to guess that's going to be back on Cup speedways.
And that's what IROC did. And they at one point race randomly in like Japan or something, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't
know if the IROC ever raced. NASCAR did go to Japan for a couple times.
That would be interesting how they can get IROC, and somehow I think they would need to have to partner with NASCAR in some way, shape, or form, and kind of do things that NASCAR wouldn't traditionally do, and maybe even run internationally. I think could bring in some more audiences. That's their opportunity to be able to do that. Put it on local networks that everybody can tune into, and everybody knows what IROC is because Junior and Senior.
It's been around for a long,
well, Junior
long
and Senior raced that, and didn't Junior beat him at Michigan? I believe it was.
He just got passed by Senior at Michigan.
Okay, I knew they had a great battle at Michigan, and I know they were talking trash to one another after the race, and and all of that. So definitely some exciting things coming up in the motorsports world. We don't know when IROC will be premiering. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But let's get into our first part, and we sent a poll out, and I'm sure this is going to stir up some things. Our our list for top 5 drivers in NASCAR of all time. Sorry for the interruption, guys, but I got to give a shout out to our sponsor and partner, BetStamp. Sports betting has rapidly risen in popularity, and I want to connect you all with an opportunity to get started and get ahead. Having multiple sportsbook accounts is the simplest way to maximize your profits, and there's never been a better time to sign up than now. When you visit my page, signupexpert.com/ZB, you'll be connected to all the sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. All these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through my link, you'll be automatically receive the top offer at each one. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful sports betting. If you want to take advantage of these benefits and support this brand, please consider signing up for your next sports book at signupexpert.com/ZB. Back to the show. Since you went first last time, Dad, I will take the liberty of going first this time. So my top 5 NASCAR drivers, and this is obviously going to be Cup drivers. I'm not going to throw a random Xfinity driver or something up in there. So at number 5, I have none other than Rowdy Kyle Busch. It's got over 200 wins across all the NASCAR series, 2 championships now in the Cup Series. And this is actually one of the few on the list that was more inconsistent with crew chiefs. He's had multiple crew chiefs over the time he's been in the series, and kind of goes with his personality and how kind of hardcore he used to be. He's lightened up a lot since he's been to Childress, and randomly we find ourselves rooting for him. Whether you like him or not, though, Kyle Busch, definitely one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time, and especially if he can get a 3rd championship, that will even solidify him into the top 5 and maybe even elevate it a little bit further. At number 4, this is going to raise this is going to stir up some stuff, I'm sure, have this guy this low. But I'm going with Jeff Gordon. I mean, yeah, it might be a little bit low, but you'll know why once I got the top 3. Jeff Gordon, obviously incredible career. Filled in for Junior towards the late part of his career, so had consistent finishes. If he wanted to, he could probably still go out and race. He's still a very prominent figure in NASCAR, working as the vice president for Hendrick. Over 90 wins in his career, 4 championships, and that was mainly with Ray Evernham. So there's kind of a consistency with these top 5 that coming up with these next 3 as well. So the next one, and this is one that actually went from crew chief to crew chief as well. I'm going with Dale Earnhardt Sr. 7 championships. You can probably guess who the top 3 are. They're going to be all the 7 times. We're going to do a little bit of spoiler alert. You get 7 championships, you have the most championships in That's
not my top 3.
Well, you're wrong. And so 7 championships. Well, I mean, what can you say? He's the Intimidator, the best restrictor plate racer out there that's ever been. I'm not even going to debate it. I mean, just that. 3 for Dale. That's all I got. Number 2, I have Jimmy Johnson, the other 7-time, the newest 7-time, and the newest inductee of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. You can't really argue with what he's done. He went through so many different cars, winning 5 championships in a row. Now, consistency there, Chad Canals. He had him in his entire career. So it takes more than just a great driver in general to win all these championships. You got to have a consistent crew. You got to have a great crew chief. You got to have a crew chief that tells you, hey, you're wrong. And that was a lot with JJ and Chad Canals. So with all the different cars he had to race through, when you went through the crappy car tomorrow with the big ass wing on the back to the modified car tomorrow that still was an ugly square box, up to the newest generation, just everything across the board. Impressive runs from Jimmy Johnson. So he's my number 2. And number 1 is the King, Richard Petty. Yes, he's got 200 wins, and yes, they raced 7 million times a year, it seemed like, but to race through so many different decades and from different racetracks, whether they were dirt, I don't think he raced on the beach, I don't believe, but he raced literally everywhere. Conveniently gets his 200th win when the president flies into Daytona, but we're not going to talk about all that because there's some obviously NASCAR conspiracies we might get into later this year. But yeah, number 1, I've got the King, Richard Petty. So we'll see how that list stirs up, but go ahead with your top 5 NASCAR drivers of all time.
Well, we have the exact same 5 drivers.
Just different order.
So number 5, I got Kyle Busch. I agree with, he's probably one of the greatest of his generation, if not the greatest of his generation to come out running NASCAR. Like him or not, most people didn't like him. I didn't like him when he was in Toyota. Gets married, has a kid, gets a little older, he kind of settled down. He's not as much of a dick anymore. So number 4, and this is where it changes up a little bit. I have Jimmy Johnson at number 4.
Okay.
And the main reason for this is his championships all came in the chase or countdown era. I don't weight that the same as my top 3 guys. they all won their championships the hard way through being consistent the whole year, not just being good the last 10 races of the season. So at number 3, I've got Jeff Gordon. Main reason for that because he's one of the last that's really done it old school, let's call it. So at number 2, gotta love him, the Intimidator, Dale Earnhardt, my personal favorite. Just he's the guy every regular guy wanted to be. He was too cool. He was like the Darth Vader from NASCAR. I mean, he could have his own theme song and it fit perfect. And like you said, number 1, how do you argue with 200 wins? Richard Petty. Yeah, I understand that they had way better equipment than probably most other teams, but he still won it. And won big tracks, small tracks, super speedways, dirt tracks, the whole deal. It's pretty hard to argue with him. And as an honorable mention, I'd like to put in David Pearson, 105 feature wins, and I don't think he really ever ran more than a couple seasons full time. So that's really quite impressive that he would do. He was the king of Darlington there for a while too. So
yeah,
but yeah, that's our listeners. Great minds think alike, I think.
Yeah, and again with our list, outside of Dale and Rowdy, the drivers had the same crew chiefs their entire career. Obviously, Richard Petty had Dale Inman, Jimmy Johnson with Chad Canals, and Jeff Gordon with Ray Evernham. So again, it takes a whole crew to win championships. Kyle Larson proved that when he won his championship a couple years ago, and it still hangs true to today. You need to have a good crew all around, have a chance to win, especially in the modern era, how everything is set up too.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive how as many crew chiefs as Kyle Busch has, and they instantly have success right off the bat. Because it usually takes, there's a little bit of familiarity you got to get with each other, kind of know what you want to know what they're thinking just by the tone of their voice and things like that, and they just worked out so well for him that it never even missed a beat. So that's quite good. But Earnhardt had Andy Petrie for a long time.
Yeah.
So he didn't really have too many different crew chiefs.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, just like literally the same guy was the entire time with those others. One thing that everybody watching and listening needs to know, though, how big of Earnhardt fans we were and we are whenever Junior races. The year that Dale died, 2001, is when my brother Michael was born. And obviously, being the redneck-ass family we were like, what do we need? What are we going to name? What's the middle name going to be of Michael? And without hesitation, everybody's like, Dale. Yep. So that just shows a little bit how much we love Dale. And I don't remember too much of watching him race. I do, however, remember all the ESPN things flashing on the screen of Dale's death. Randomly remember that. But, yeah, that just goes to tell you that's how much of Earnhardt fans we are. So, yeah, a little fun fact for you guys.
Yeah, we were Earnhardt fans before it was cool to be an Earnhardt fan. And that's why you still can't you can't convince me that Bill Elliott was a more popular driver than Dale Earnhardt. There's absolutely no way.
Again, that's another conspiracy we'll do later on. All right, so trivia time, Dad. Another week, another trivia question. So this one's a fun one. We did the oldest tracks that are currently racing, or in the NASCAR circuit. Let's do the oldest drivers that are currently racing, and these are full-time drivers, not any part-time drivers as well. With Kevin Harvick's old ass retiring last year and going into the booth, he left it open for these old guys now. So number 5 on up, well, you can do whatever order you want. I got 5 drivers that are the oldest right now, so you could probably get them. I think you can do pretty well with it. So who do you think's the oldest that are currently racing in full-time NASCAR Cup Series drivers?
I think Martin Truex has got to be in there.
He is the oldest. He is 43, There is a tie for the oldest and the middle, I guess, but it's by months. But Truex is a slightly older. He was born in June. He'll be 44 in June.
Denny Hamlin?
Denny Hamlin's number 2. He's 43. Will be 44 in November.
Oh, boy. That's actually kind of tough.
There's one that might trick you up, but you should get the other ones.
And I'm trying to go through team. Brad Keselowski?
Yep, number 3. He is 39. He'll be 40 here in a couple weeks. He'll be 40 by the Daytona 500. His birthday's February 12th. You got number 4 and 5 left.
I don't think it's anybody from Penske. They're all pretty young.
Yeah.
Let's see. Joe Gibbs, outside of. Is Kyle Busch on there?
Kyle Busch is number 5. He's 38.
Okay.
And one, I'll have to give you a hint. I think it's a smaller team, but it's a feel-good team.
Is it Michael McDowell?
Michael McDowell. He's number 4. He's 39 years old. Yeah,
I was trying to go by team, trying to think who was driving these things.
Yeah, so that was the fun one for this week, right? I think that was pretty good. So yeah, I think that about.
Oh, on that note, talking about Michael McDowell. Oh wow, just slipped my mind. He was one of the Matt DiBenedetto. It looks like he lost sponsorship.
Yes.
Right now, and probably will not be racing unless some sponsorship comes up.
Yeah, that sucks. I love Matty D. He's just a tremendous personality in NASCAR.
Yeah,
I remember a couple years ago when how fired up he was when he ran in the was it 2nd or 4th or something at Bristol?
Bristol, I think.
Yeah, and that was just awesome to see how pumped up he was. So hopefully he gets some sort of sponsorship. Somebody you would think would be able to pick him up, but. Yeah, that just goes to tell you the oldest driver in the field right now is 43 years old. So that shows you how young NASCAR has gotten. Everybody's generally in either their early 30s or down into their 20s. I don't think we have any teenagers in the Cup Series this year. I think the youngest was like Harrison Burton or something. And Noah Gragson one of the young ones too racing. But
yeah, it used to be the guys coming in were probably in their mid-20s before they finally got a shot. Now they're flagging these kids at 15 years old and then starting to, groom them for, a Cup career.
You got the descendants already of these current drivers. You got Kyle Busch's son, and you've got Kevin Harvick's son. They're getting ready. They'll be in the Cup Series within the next decade for sure. I think that about does it. So for our top 5 list next week, since the Clash is going to be next week, let's give our top 5 tracks that we want to see the Clash go to, excluding Daytona. If NASCAR is insisting on going somewhere other than Daytona, the top 5 tracks that we want to see the Clash go to start off the year. So we'll work on that list for the next. Yeah, we'll work on that list for the next week. But make sure you guys like, follow, subscribe wherever you're listening to this and whenever you're listening to it. Make sure you share it. Follow all social media platforms. And, we will see you guys next week with that top 5. Make sure you comment down below what you think your top 5 for the Clash will be. Dad, until next week, we'll see you then.
All right. Bye, everybody.